What if the decisive moment in Ukraine's war is not shaped by tanks or trenches, but by starving supply lines, sabotaged railways, and the plunging of entire cities into darkness? Imagine a scenario not unlike the sieges of Leningrad or Stalingrad in the 20th century, where the fate of millions hinged more on the flow of bread, fuel, and electricity than on the number of soldiers at the gates. This is not some distant nightmare, but an emerging reality for Ukraine, a reality where the most critical struggle is unfolding far from the front line and deep in the country's rear, where logistics routes, railways, and power grids are under relentless, calculated assault. While the world's attention remains glued to the ferocious battle for Pokrovsk, the actual war is being fought in the shadows, far from the camera's lens. Here, the rules of conflict are being rewritten by sabotage teams, drone strikes, and advanced missile systems. Every train derailed, every substation destroyed, chips away at Ukraine's war effort and frays the fabric of daily life for millions of civilians. It is a war that echoes the lessons of World War II, when the German blitzkrieg sought not just to outmaneuver armies, but to choke off Soviet supply lines. Yet today, the tools and speed of destruction are exponentially greater. This marks a new, perilous phase. Unprecedented advances in weaponry, such as hypersonic missiles, stealth drones, and cyber warfare, mean that cutting-edge missiles are slipping past even the most sophisticated air defenses. No infrastructure, no city, is truly out of reach anymore. In the Gulf War, coalition forces paralyzed Iraq's command structure by targeting power and communications grids. Now, Ukraine faces a similar threat, but with even fewer resources and a much more determined adversary. In a gamble fraught with risk, Ukraine is redeploying its final reserve units to defend Pokrovsk, stripping other regions almost bare. This maneuver may decide the fate of entire provinces, while exposing dangerous gaps elsewhere. The world has seen such high-stakes gambits before. In the Korean War, United Nations forces concentrated their strength at Pusan, risking northern flanks for a decisive stand. Ukraine's choice today is equally stark, and the consequences could be just as far-reaching. But the attacks are not just targeting soldiers. Every disrupted train, every sabotaged convoy, every cyber attack on a logistics software platform chips away at Ukraine's war effort and frays the fabric of daily life. For example, if a single fuel depot in central Ukraine is destroyed, it could leave entire tank battalions paralyzed for weeks. If a railway bridge is destroyed near Dnipro, it might take months to rebuild, stranding ammunition and food hundreds of kilometers from the front. If leaders and the public overlook this invisible war, they risk much more than a lost battle. They could lose the ability to sustain the fight itself. A single broken supply chain or a sudden blackout could unleash consequences that echo far beyond a single clash. Consider the ice storm in Quebec in the late 90s, when millions lost power for weeks and the entire province was paralyzed. Now imagine that stretched across a nation at war. To understand Ukraine's survival, we need to uncover how these hidden front lines are rewriting the rules of the conflict, and why the stakes could not be higher. Let's examine how this war behind the scenes is waged, and why control over railways, roads, and power grids may shape the fate of the entire conflict. Pokrovsk commands the headlines, but the true battle for Ukraine's future unfolds far from the cameras, in the silent corridors of logistics, where supplies, technology, and infrastructure dictate the fate of armies. The Ukrainian High Command has made a perilous choice. Holding Pokrovsk is now the supreme priority. To achieve this, combat-ready brigades have been pulled from other vital fronts, leaving the northern sectors, Sumy and Chernihiv, dangerously under-defended. Fortifications there have reportedly thinned, all to bolster the embattled Donbas line. But this bold maneuver risks disaster. If Pokrovsk falls, Russian troops could surge forward, threatening the heart of the Dnipro region and setting off a chain reaction that might unravel Ukraine's entire eastern defense. Simultaneously, the depleted northern borders become tempting targets, inviting fresh Russian incursions that could sever key highways and railways, isolating entire regions from reinforcements and supplies. The danger is not theoretical. In World War II, when the Wehrmacht bypassed strongpoints to encircle Soviet armies, entire fronts collapsed in days. Ukraine faces a similar risk today. A single breakthrough at Pokrovsk could allow Russian forces to sweep westward, cutting off not just troops, but entire provinces from food, fuel, and hope. Russian offensives are gaining momentum. Ukrainian units have lost ground in villages and towns, including the strategic Pokrovsk coal mine, delivering not just military setbacks, but fresh wounds to a region already crippled by economic warfare. Each lost industrial site, like the massive Pokrovsk coal mine, fractures supply chains, amplifying civilian hardship and deepening the strain on Ukraine's war machine. Consider the impact. The loss of a single coal mine can starve steel mills of fuel, halt train traffic, and force power plants offline. In the United States during the Great Depression, coal shortages led to rolling blackouts and economic shutdowns. Ukraine now faces these disruptions in the midst of war, compounding every hardship. Evacuation efforts are intensifying. Major cities are not only moving civilians to safety, but also relocating government records and essential infrastructure. These are not routine drills. They reveal a stark new reality. A single tactical error could trigger catastrophic territorial collapse or sweep away entire defensive lines. The relocation of archives, like those of Kharkiv in 2022, is more than a bureaucratic move. It is a recognition that cities may fall and that the loss of identity documents, banking records, and medical files could paralyze recovery for years. When Mosul fell to ISIS, the destruction of records crippled local governance for half a decade. With resources and troops funneled into one burning sector, Ukraine's survival now teeters on a knife's edge. Every decision on the battlefield is mirrored by a hidden war to keep trains running, power grids intact, and the nation breathing. If the Dnipro power plant falls, or if the Kharkiv rail hub is destroyed, entire regions could be cut off, echoing the isolation of Sarajevo during its siege in the 1990s. Yet the struggle for logistics is not just about troop movements or supply trucks. It is a battle of innovation, sabotage, and relentless adaptation. As Ukraine races to defend its lifelines, new threats and unexpected opportunities are emerging in the shadows. Cyber attacks, like those that crippled Estonia in 2007, now threaten to paralyze Ukraine's railways and communications at any moment. When mud, missiles, and sabotage cause more havoc than artillery, the very foundation of an army's strength and a city's ability to survive begins to crack. Relentless rains drench the landscape. What were once roads have turned to endless rivers of mud. Any vehicle that dares to leave the remaining stretches of pavement risks becoming trapped, immobilized by the earth itself. Convoys carrying supplies or reinforcements are left stranded, easy prey for enemy drones and shelling. This is not a new problem. Napoleon's invasion of Russia was famously undone by mud and poor roads, but the scale and speed have changed. Modern supply convoys, loaded with high-tech equipment, are just as vulnerable to natural obstacles as their Napoleonic forebears. The main arteries of the war, highways and rail lines, are under constant attack. Some are choked off entirely, others barely function under perpetual threat. The result is a logistical nightmare. Both soldiers and civilians now struggle to get even the most basic necessities. In past conflicts like the Vietnam War, control of the Ho Chi Minh Trail proved decisive. Today, Ukraine's highways and railways are the new lifelines under siege. Precision strikes hit electrical substations, rail depots, and supply hubs with chilling efficiency. The effect is paralysis. Trains, trucks, and armored vehicles grind to a halt as the infrastructure holding them together is shattered. For every locomotive destroyed, the loss is almost permanent. Finding replacements is nearly impossible, and delays ripple through every supply route. The humanitarian toll is immense. Entire neighborhoods are plunged into darkness as power grids collapse. Tens of thousands lose access to clean water. Hospitals fight to keep emergency generators running, but fuel and spare parts are running dangerously low. Scenes eerily reminiscent of Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria play out across Ukrainian cities. Except here, the destruction is deliberate. Evacuation itself is transforming. Not only are civilians on the move, but government archives and bank vaults are being hurriedly packed and shipped out. This signals a sobering fear that whole cities might soon change hands, with all vital records and assets lost if left behind. In Syria, the loss of medical and educational records after the fall of Aleppo set reconstruction back by years. If these logistical and infrastructure crises are not overcome, the consequences will be dire. The military could run dry of fuel and ammunition. Entire cities might spiral into chaos, darkness, and humanitarian disaster. The fall of Mariupol was preceded by weeks of supply shortages and infrastructure collapse, a warning for every city now under threat. Yet amid the crisis, both sides are racing to adapt, calling in new technology and outside expertise, desperate to keep their war machines running. The next phase of this conflict is set to redefine not just how armies fight, but how societies survive. In World War II, the Allies' mastery of logistics enabled the D-Day invasion. Today, the outcome may hinge on who can keep the trains and power stations operating under fire. But as these systems buckle, unexpected actors and unproven tactics are coming to the forefront. The battle for logistics is about to enter an unpredictable, high-tech phase. Could a handful of advanced missiles, or a few unseen foreign advisors, reshape the war in ways that entire divisions could not? In recent weeks, Russia has unveiled missile systems that Western strategists once doubted could ever be countered. These new weapons slip past even the latest air defenses, causing interception rates to plummet and leaving crucial sites exposed. The introduction of hypersonic missiles, able to strike within minutes, has forced a complete rethink of defensive planning. Some missiles now carry cluster munitions. With a single launch, they scatter submunitions over wide areas, transforming one strike into a storm of destruction. Even successful interceptions often fail to prevent fuel depots, power substations, or military convoys from suffering damage far beyond the original impact point. In Lebanon in 2006, cluster munitions rendered whole towns uninhabitable for months. Ukraine now faces similar risks. The targets are changing too. No longer confined to rail yards and transformers, these attacks are now aimed at suspected command centers, sometimes rumored to host foreign NATO officers. Official statements deny foreign casualties, but rumors of covert evacuations swirl through open-source channels and intelligence leaks alike. The shadow war has grown so murky that even seasoned analysts struggle to separate fact from fiction. When precision strikes destroy emergency power units sent by Western allies, Ukrainian cities plunge into sudden blackouts. The immediate effect ripples from soldiers at the front to doctors in darkened hospitals, fraying morale and resilience with every outage. In the Balkans in the 1990s, similar blackouts led to surges in disease and crime. Ukraine must brace for these cascading effects. Precision-guided missiles are not for leveling cities, but for dismantling the enemy's backbone. By crippling logistics and targeting command infrastructure, each strike sends a message. Victory will hinge not on brute force, but on the ability to disrupt, isolate, and survive the coming winter. The memory of the Soviet winter campaigns, where supply failures doomed entire armies, should haunt every Ukrainian and Russian planner alike. If one side manages to seize a lasting edge in technology, or harness enough foreign expertise to fully exploit these systems, the balance could shift overnight. Such a turn would redraw not only the battle lines, but the entire security map of Europe, with consequences that stretch far beyond Ukraine itself. The introduction of American Lend-Lease in World War II radically altered the Eastern Front. A similar technological leap could change today's war just as suddenly. As the technological arms race accelerates, new questions emerge about escalation, alliances, and the limits of Western intervention. The coming weeks may reveal whether these innovations can truly rewrite the rules of war. Will Western military aid keep pace with Russian advances, or will Ukraine find itself technologically outmatched? How do nations endure when the most devastating weapon is neither a missile nor a shell, but the sudden shattering of daily routines? This is the terrifying reality now facing millions across Ukraine and far beyond, as the conflict shifts into a ruthless campaign against logistics, utilities, and the very arteries of modern life. Power failures and water shortages have become more than mere inconveniences. They are the first tremors of deeper crises, unleashing panic, stripping store shelves bare, and pushing hospitals to the brink of disaster. For soldiers at the front, the well-being of loved ones back home is not a distant concern. Their strength is tethered to the safety and stability of their families. When blackouts plunge their neighborhoods into darkness or essentials run scarce, morale on the battlefield withers. History offers a stark warning. Armies whose home fronts crumble under pressure rarely hold out for long. Napoleon's forces collapsed in Russia as supply lines failed and morale broke. Ukraine's defenders know this lesson well. But the threat is not just emotional, it is deeply economic. Every modern industry, from steel manufacturing to public transit, depends on uninterrupted energy and secure supply lines. When these are targeted, when grids collapse or roads are severed, whole sectors come to a standstill. Jobs vanish, government budgets shrink, and anxiety spreads like wildfire. Economic paralysis can tip the outcome of war just as surely as any tank or artillery barrage. Still, societies are not powerless. With swift action and flexible strategies, much can be saved. Cities can reinforce vital infrastructure, establish backup energy sources, and build reserves of essential goods. In Israel, decades of investing in decentralized power grids have paid dividends in times of crisis. Ukraine can learn from these models. Well-rehearsed evacuation plans can prevent chaos. Even modest investments in local water storage or generator power can buy precious hours when the main grid fails. In Japan, after the Fukushima disaster, communities survived by relying on such local reserves while waiting for relief. Preparation at the individual level matters too. Knowing how to find reliable updates, where to get food and water, and how to support vulnerable neighbors transforms helplessness into resilience. Communities that organize and adapt, rather than waiting for rescue, can withstand even the most severe disruptions. The British Blitz spirit during World War II is a testament to the power of community resilience. At every tier, mastery of logistics, the lifeblood of armies and societies, empowers leaders to make decisions that shape destinies. Robust supply chains, nimble transportation, and skilled emergency crews do more than react. They avert catastrophe before it begins. The right choices and investments now may spell the difference between survival and collapse in the days ahead. The cost of neglect is plain: preventable suffering, lost ground, fractured economies, and the sudden unraveling of governments. The margin for error is vanishingly thin. Those who adapt first and fastest will decide not only the next phase of this war, but the future of their own nations. But adaptation is not just a matter of will. It demands ingenuity, new technologies, and relentless testing under fire. The next stage of this conflict will be determined by who can innovate, improvise, and outpace their adversary in the race to keep the lights on and supplies flowing. Ukraine's engineers, working around the clock to restore power and rebuild bridges, are as vital as any frontline soldier. Practical steps are critical for resilience. Cities should audit their critical infrastructure for vulnerabilities, stockpile key spare parts, and develop mutual aid agreements with neighboring regions. Households can prepare emergency kits with food, water, and basic medical supplies. Local governments should run blackout drills and ensure that emergency communication systems can function even when the main grid is down. International partners can provide support by sharing technical expertise, donating mobile generators, and helping to train utility workers in rapid repair techniques. The creation of mobile command centers and field hospitals, as seen in recent disaster responses in Turkey and Greece, could mitigate the worst effects of infrastructure attacks. Victory in the 21st century will belong to those who master battles most never see. Are you ready to notice them? Today, at the crossroads of modern warfare, it is plain. The fight for logistics and infrastructure now decides the fate of nations. What once seemed like background, supply lines, power grids, railways, has become the true front line. Here, wars are won or lost quietly, often before a single shot is reported. Each sabotaged rail, every city plunged into darkness, each broken bridge or severed road. These do not just slow armies. They fracture the backbone of societies. The struggle now is not simply over territory, but over the veins and arteries that keep militaries moving and civilians alive. When fuel stops flowing, or roads turn to ruins, even the strongest forces can be brought to a standstill, not by enemy firepower, but by a relentless, invisible campaign against the systems that sustain them. Ignore these battles, and nations risk more than defeat. They face sudden shocks, strategic surprises that topple governments, trigger economic crises, or unravel regions overnight. The true danger is not always in the news. It often strikes in silence, hidden until it is too late to react. The blackout of 2003 in North America, caused by a single software error, revealed how quickly modern societies can grind to a halt and how fragile our infrastructure truly is. The lesson for us all: power in this new era is measured not by the number of tanks or miles held, but by who controls the web of connections that binds a country together. The most decisive victories now come from mastering these shadowy, silent fronts. Are we prepared for this new kind of war? Or are we still looking backward, missing the future as it arrives?